Hey everyone, welcome back to Nomiko channel. It's February 28th, 2026, and today's AI news cycle is absolutely stacked. Record-shattering funding, geopolitical drama over killer robots and surveillance, massive layoffs in the name of AI, almost 1 billion people using ChatGPT every week, and some wild new research that could change how we customize language models. Let's get into it. OpenAI's $110 billion mega round plus new partnerships. First up, the money. OpenAI just announced one of the biggest funding rounds in Silicon Valley history, $110 billion. This story comes from Engadget Tech News, released February 27, 2026. Here's how that 110 billion breaks down. Amazon is in for $50 billion. Nvidia is putting in $30 billion. SoftBank is adding another $30 billion. Engadget reports. This brings OpenAI's valuation to around $730 billion. That is larger than many entire sectors for a company still burning serious cash. And this isn't just checks being written, it's a full ecosystem play. According to Engadget, Amazon Web Services will run OpenAI models for enterprise customers, so companies can build generative AI applications and agents at production scale. AWS is also becoming the exclusive third-party cloud distribution provider for OpenAI Frontier, which is OpenAI's agentic enterprise platform. OpenAI has committed to consuming 2 gigawatts of Amazon's Trainium capacity, Amazon's custom AI training hardware. So Amazon invests tens of billions into OpenAI, and OpenAI commits to spending massive amounts back on Amazon's cloud and chips. As Engadget puts it, the AI funding Ouroboros continues. Same story with Nvidia. OpenAI will use 2 gigawatts of training capacity on NVIDIA's Vera Rubin systems, plus another 3 gigawatts of NVIDIA compute for inference workloads. So NVIDIA invests, and OpenAI in turn becomes a gigantic guaranteed customer for NVIDIA's next-gen systems. Financially, Engadget notes OpenAI lost about $5 billion in 2024. Is estimated to lose around $8 billion in 2025, and forecasts a $14 billion loss in 2026. Despite that, the company is projecting $100 billion in annual revenue by 2029. So the bet here is lose a lot now to dominate later. Sam Altman told CNBC, AI is going to happen everywhere, which, depending on your mood, sounds either exciting or mildly threatening. Microsoft plus OpenAI, we're still together. With all this new money coming in from Amazon, Nvidia, and SoftBank, a big question popped up. Where does this leave Microsoft? On the same day, February 27th, the official Microsoft blog published a joint statement titled Microsoft and OpenAI Joint Statement on Continuing Partnership. They don't go deep into financial details, but they basically say this partnership started in 2019 as a research collaboration. It's now one of the most consequential collaborations in technology. It's grounded in mutual trust, deep technical integration, and a long-term commitment to innovation. The key takeaway from Microsoft's blog: despite OpenAI's new investors and its expanding ecosystem, Microsoft and OpenAI are signaling that they're still aligned and still building together, especially around Azure and Microsoft's AI products. So, in one day, OpenAI locks in huge new investments and cloud deals with Amazon and Nvidia, and simultaneously reassures the world that Microsoft remains a core long-term partner. This is OpenAI positioning itself as the central hub in a multi-giant ecosystem. Microsoft, Amazon, Nvidia, and others all wrapped around its models. AI, the Pentagon, and Anthropic's red lines. Now, While OpenAI is becoming the center of a trillion-dollar AI economy, its rival Anthropic is at the center of a national security showdown. Multiple outlets are covering this from different angles, so let's stitch them together. First, Engadget Tech News reported on February 27, 2026, that President Donald Trump has ordered all US government agencies to stop using Anthropic's services. That means Claude and related tools. According to Engadget, there is a 6-month phase-out period for federal agencies, including the Department of Defense, to migrate off Anthropic. On Truth Social, Trump accused Anthropic of trying to strong-arm the Department of War by insisting their AI not be used for mass surveillance of Americans or in fully autonomous weapons. He threatened to use the full power of the presidency and warned of major civil and criminal consequences if Anthropic doesn't cooperate during the phase-out. Engadget also notes that Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has now directed the Pentagon to formally designate Anthropic as a supply chain risk to national security. That means no contractor, supplier, or partner that does business with the US military can have commercial activity with Anthropic. Anthropic, in comments to Engadget earlier in the day, said the Pentagon's proposed contract language made virtually no progress on preventing misuse. Supposed compromise language was paired with legalese that would let safeguards be ignored at will. Their core position is that Claude shouldn't enable mass surveillance of Americans or fully autonomous lethal weapons. Engadget also reports that advocacy groups like the Center for Democracy and Technology have slammed Trump's move. CDT's president, Alexandra Givens, warned that it sets a dangerous precedent, chills companies' ability to frankly discuss appropriate uses of their tech with government, and distorts market incentives, and normalizes an expensive view of executive power. And the industry is reacting. Engadget says hundreds of Google and OpenAI employees signed an open letter urging their companies to stand in solidarity with Anthropic. An internal memo seen by Axios reportedly shows Sam Altman saying OpenAI would draw the same red line as Anthropic on these uses. Wired Artificial Intelligence also covered this on February 27, 2026, with a piece titled "Trump Moves to Ban Anthropic from the US Government." Wired's framing is very clear. This order comes after the Defense Department pressured Anthropic to drop restrictions on how its AI could be used by the military. The Verge AI did a deeper dive the same day, February 27th, in a piece called AI versus the Pentagon: Killer Robots, Mass Surveillance, and Red Lines. The Verge lays out the context. The Pentagon wants AI models to be available for any lawful use, which would include mass surveillance and fully autonomous lethal weapons. Anthropic has refused to loosen its safety guardrails. According to The Verge, the Pentagon CTO, Emil Michael, has been pushing to designate Anthropic a supply chain risk if it doesn't comply, a label usually reserved for serious national security threats. The Verge reports that Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei has said threats do not change our position. We cannot in good conscience accede to their request. Anthropic's rivals OpenAI and xAI have reportedly agreed to the Pentagon's new terms, at least according to The Verge's reporting. Though remember, internally, OpenAI employees are now pressuring leadership to hold a similar line. So across Engadget, Wired, and The Verge, you see the same core conflict. Can AI companies enforce ethical red lines on how their models are used by the military? Or does the government get to dictate any lawful use, including mass surveillance and fully autonomous weapons? This is one of the first major public tests of AI safety principles versus state power. Block lays off 40%, going all in on AI. Next, the economic impact. Ars Technica AI reported on February 27th, 2026 that Block, the company behind Square and Cash App, is laying off 40% of its workforce as it goes all in on AI tools. According to Ars Technica, Block's CEO says most companies are late in realizing how much technology will affect employment. The company is betting that AI tools can automate a huge chunk of what humans were doing, especially in operations, support, and maybe even parts of engineering and finance. This is a concrete example of something we talk about a lot in the abstract: AI as a job transformer versus job destroyer. When a major fintech company like Block cuts nearly half its staff and explicitly cites AI as the reason, that sends a signal to the rest of the industry. AI isn't just a productivity add-on, it's something executives are willing to restructure entire companies around. OpenAI, ethics, and insider trading on prediction markets. Back to OpenAI for a moment, this time on the governance and ethics side. Wired Artificial Intelligence published another piece on February 27, 2026 titled OpenAI Fires an Employee for Prediction Market Insider Trading. According to Wired, prediction markets like Polymarket and Kalshi are becoming big business, letting people bet on future events, everything from elections to product launches to AI milestones. Some big tech employees have started to test the boundaries by making trades based on insider knowledge. OpenAI has now fired an employee for exactly that, using internal, non-public information to place bets on these markets. This is basically insider trading, but instead of traditional financial securities, is happening on forecasting platforms. Wired's broader point is that as AI companies become more powerful and more secretive, the information they hold about capabilities, timelines, partnerships, and policy changes becomes very valuable for anyone trying to profit on prediction markets. So we're seeing a collision of AI secrecy, financial speculation, and corporate ethics and compliance. ChatGPT, nearly 1 billion weekly users. Now, let's zoom out to usage. CNET Tech News reported on February 27, 2026, that ChatGPT has almost 1 billion weekly users, according to OpenAI. CNET notes that's up from around 700 million weekly users in September of last year, and more than double what it was a year ago. So while OpenAI is losing billions of dollars, as Engadget highlighted, it's also operating a product that is approaching the scale of the biggest consumer platforms in history. Almost 1 billion people using a single AI assistant every week means the feedback loop on model behavior is enormous. The cultural influence of these systems is massive, and any policy changes like safety rules, content filters, or integrations can impact a huge portion of the internet's daily activity. Tie this back to the earlier stories. A company with nearly 1 billion weekly users is also the one getting $110 billion in new funding. It's also the one employees are urging to take strong ethical stances like Anthropic is doing. And its staff are important enough that their private knowledge can move prediction markets. Scale, money, and ethics are all intertwined here. Sakana AI's Doc-to-LoRA and Text-to-LoRA. Let's end with some actual model innovation. MarkTech Post AI News reported on February 27th, 2026 about new work from Tokyo-based Sakana AI, Doc-to-LoRA, and Text-to-LoRA. The article explains the problem like this. When you customize large language models today, you usually have to choose between in-context learning, where you stuff all your instructions, docs, or examples into the prompt, very flexible but expensive and limited by context window, or context distillation, or supervised fine-tuning, where you actually retrain the model or a LoRa adapter on your data, more efficient at runtime but slow and engineering heavy to set up. Sakana AI proposes a new approach using hypernetworks. Text-to-LoRA, or T2L, you describe what you want in natural language, and a hypernetwork instantly generates a LoRa adapter that tweaks the base model to behave that way. Doc-to-LoRA. You feed it long documents like manuals, internal knowledge bases, or policy docs, and it internalizes that content into a LoRa adapter. MarkTech Post explains that the goal is to bypass these constraints through cost amortization. In other words, you pay the cost once to generate a specialized adapter. Then you reuse that adapter over and over instead of reprompting with long context every time. If this holds up in practice, it could mean faster, cheaper customization of models for specific domains or companies, less reliance on gigantic context windows, and a smoother path from here's my data to here's a model that behaves like it read and understood all of it. In a world where almost 1 billion people are using generic ChatGPT, Sakana AI's work, as reported by MarkTech Post, points toward a future where everyone also has highly personalized, instantly trained mini models, pulling it all together. So, putting today's stories together. From Engadget Tech News and the official Microsoft blog, we see OpenAI solidifying itself as the gravitational center of the AI ecosystem. $110 billion in new funding from Amazon, NVIDIA, and SoftBank, deep cloud and compute partnerships, public reassurance that its long-term relationship with Microsoft is intact, and almost 1 billion weekly ChatGPT users, as reported by CNET. From Engadget, Wired, and The Verge, we see the other side of AI power. Anthropic drawing hard red lines on mass surveillance and fully autonomous lethal weapons. The Pentagon pushing back and labeling them a supply chain risk. President Trump ordering all federal agencies to drop Anthropic, as covered by Engadget and Wired. And a broader question emerging, highlighted by The Verge. Who decides how these systems can be used? The companies that build them or the governments that buy them? From Ars Technica AI, we see the workplace implications. Block cutting 40% of its workforce as it goes all in on AI tools, showing how quickly executives are willing to restructure around automation. From Wired's second piece, we see new ethical gray zones. OpenAI firing an employee for insider trading on prediction markets like Polymarket and Kalshi, showing how AI secrecy and financial speculation are colliding. And from MarkTech Post, we get a glimpse of the next wave of research. Sakana AI's Doc-to-LoRA and Text-to-LoRA hint at a world where customizing models to your documents or instructions is instant and cheap, instead of a massive engineering project. If you want to dive deeper into any of these stories, check out Engadget Tech News for the OpenAI funding and the Anthropic Pentagon conflict. Read the official Microsoft blog for the joint Microsoft OpenAI statement. Look at Wired Artificial Intelligence for their coverage of Trump's Anthropic ban and the OpenAI insider trading case. Head to The Verge AI for their in-depth AI versus the Pentagon feature. Visit Ars Technica AI for the block layoffs analysis. See CNET Tech News for the latest ChatGPT usage numbers. And MarkTech Post AI news for Sakana AI's Doc-to-LoRA and Text-to-LoRA research. I'll link all of the sources in the video description so you can read them directly and support the original reporting. If you found this roundup helpful, make sure to subscribe to No Mic, hit the bell so you don't miss the next AI news drop, and let me know in the comments which of today's stories do you think will matter most 5 years from now. The $110 billion funding, the Pentagon versus Anthropic standoff, the 40% layoffs at Block, or Sakana AI's new way to customize models. Thanks for watching Naomigo channel, and I'll see you in the next one.